let's talk about Eliza Davis George. Born in 1879 and died in 1980, although I've also seen the date 1979. So either way, she lived about 100 years. She was a missionary, a church planter, grew up in Texas, studied at Central Texas College. Baptist leaders at the time said they would not send a black woman on a mission. So there's actually a number of things. The fact she was a woman was a problem for them, and the fact that she was black was probably a bigger problem for them. But she did not give up. In 1914, she was finally supported by the NBC. She began serving in Liberia as an evangelist, church planter, and founder of the Bible Industrial Academy. By the 1960s, listen to this. This is why she's a hero of mine. Eliza George, her Baptist association had 27 churches, 8 schools, and this lady was active in ministry until her 90s. Quite impressive. Quite impressive. So I want to actually go to a few websites to learn more about her. Liza George was an African-American missionary to Liberia and founder of the Elizabeth Native Interior Mission. She grew up in Texas, studied at Central Texas College, where she became involved in the student volunteer movement and made plans to serve in Africa. Her plans were nearly thwarted when she learned from Texas Baptist leaders that they had no intention of sending a black woman to Africa. I mean, think about this. Apparently, to a lot of Christians, I guess, what do we call them, right? At the time, it only made sense to send white people to Africa. Apparently, that was the logic. You know what I'm saying? It's hard to look back at this and excuse it. We've got a black woman, but we got all these white missionaries lined up. Make sure those white missionaries get over to Africa. Don't let that black woman go. That wouldn't make any sense. Anyways, they told her that if she wanted to reach black people with the gospel, she could do so at home. Oh, thanks, guys. Thanks. Well, why don't you tell that to the white missionaries? Oh, they wouldn't reach out to the black folks. That's why. Excuse me. She refused to give up and in 1914, supported by the National Baptist Convention, arrived in Liberia to begin her ministry, which continued for more than a half century. She served as an evangelist, church planter, and founder of the Bible Industrial Academy. Despite her success, however, she faced problems with financial support. In 1919, when a British businessman proposed marriage, she refused at first, but then accepted, having concluded that his promised support was the only means by which she could remain in Africa. I don't know what to make of that. I don't know what to make of that. Someone, ladies in the audience, tell me what to make of that. I mean, that's interesting. I'd like to know more about this. Somebody look up, if you can find Eliza Davis George, find her husband. I'm curious what this guy looks like. Why'd she refuse him? Was there a problem there? I'm extremely curious now. Although they worked together for 20 years, the marriage was filled with conflict. After her husband, what's news about that? Sorry. After her husband died in 1939, she was forced to become independent and rely on small contributions given through Eliza Davis George clubs. By the 1960s, the Eliza George Baptist Association had 27 churches. George, that's her last name, remained active in the ministry until she reached her 90s, when the work was taken over by the Liberians. She retired in Austin, Texas. And here's a book about her, right here. Lori Lutz's Born to Lose, Bound to Win. The Amazing Journey of Mother Eliza George, 1980. And also Ruth Tucker, who wrote a pretty good book on the cults, actually. Called, I think, Another Gospel. That's a good book to check out. Guardians of the Great Commission, The Story of Women in Modern Missions, 1988. So, that's good about her. Here, I found another little biography about her from the Western Tract Mission. Let me read this one real quick. She was a woman known as God-woman by the people she served. As a young child, she fell in love with Jesus and was determined to do whatever she felt Jesus wanted her to do. Nothing would deter her, not even the important people in America who represented the mission boards and could have supported her as a missionary to her own people in Africa. When she lost the support of mission boards, she raised her own support among individual people who sensed her vision. She grew up in segregated Texas and came to be known as a woman of faith. She was also a woman of prayer. Whenever an important decision had to be made, she spent a good part of her night in prayer. Once she and two of her orphan boys swam, waded, and walked 200 miles along the coast of Liberia to get $200, which had been sent for her support to Monrovia instead of Greenville, where she worked. But when they got there, it had been sent back to America. Oh, what a horrible... I hate hearing stories like this. Occasionally, someone gave them a ride on a boat across the river. When her mission board disbanded, she met another missionary who convinced her to marry him. Oh, so he was a missionary. Okay, well, he was all right. The other one said he was a businessman. I guess he was both, because that would be the only way she'd be able to stay in Africa. She prayed about this and came to the conclusion that God wanted her to marry him. He later died in Africa because he drank too much strong drink, but she admitted that she would not have been able to start the mission in the jungle without him. You know, missionaries go through a lot, and sometimes, you know, these missionaries aren't superhuman. It seems like it, but, you know, sometimes they end up turning into stuff like this. It is a lonely job, and it's a lonely calling. So, I mean, I'm not excusing this guy's behavior, but understand, you know. She also won the support of the Liberian government. She trained many young people and sent some to America. Now listen to that. That's awesome. For further training, but only one came back to continue the work she had nurtured for so many years. By this time, she was in her 90s, but still went back to supervise the work. That's awesome. And here's When God Says Go, the amazing journey of a slave's daughter. So, I mean, she was a daughter of a slave. I mean, these folks are amazing. This is why we do this.
You're now listening to Street Apologist. Street Apologist. Street Apologist. Street Apologist. Street Apologist. Street Apologist.